Welcome to Sparks of History. We are extremely pleased to have with us today Rabbi Shmuel Silber. Rabbi Silber received rabbinic ordination, Semicha, from Yeshiva University's REITs and holds a master's degree in secondary Jewish education from the Azrieli Graduate School. Previously, Rabbi Silber was the assistant rabbi of Congregation Shomrei Torah in Fair Lawn, New Jersey, and Rabbi Silber currently serves as the rabbi of Suburban Orthodox Congregation Toras Chaim in Baltimore, Maryland. Rabbi Silber founded and serves as the dean of the Institute for Jewish Continuity, has taught a master's degree program in adult education through Johns Hopkins University, teaches ongoing classes at WIT, the Women's Institute of Torah, as well as at Ma'alot in Baltimore. Thank you, Rabbi Silber, for being with us. We appreciate it very much.
It's an absolute zechus, Baruch Hashem.
Thank you. There's obviously lots of talk and discussion today, given the events regarding Jewish unity, Achdut. What is the spiritual power of Achdut? How can it be achieved? And what does it mean that Achdut through brokenness? Why does there need to be brokenness for the Jewish nation to come together? What does that mean, and why is that so?
Okay, it's a lot to unpack there. So, in terms of just the concept of Achdus, so it's the beauty of Yiddishkeit in general is that whenever we go ahead and we have some type of dilemma or we try to understand something, it's always helpful to go back to the source. So, although there are many sources of the concept of Achdus, for me personally, always one of the most striking examples was when Klal Yisrael stood at the base of Har Sinai, right, the greatest revelation that mankind ever experienced. And the pasuk says, "Vayitziatzev Yisrael tachte sahar," that these Klal Yisrael stood, at the base of the mountain. And Rashi HaKodesh points out with a beautiful, beautiful lashon. It says Vayitziatzev, a singular lashon, and Rashi says Ish echad belev echad, one people with one heart. And my Rebbe always explained that one of the beautiful ideas is it doesn't say ish echad b'dea achos. It doesn't say one people with one opinion, because that's lo haya, right? V'lo yiyah. That never happened. That never happened. But part of the beauty of Klal Yisrael is that we can go ahead and be in ish echad b'lev echad, with one people, one heart, even with deo shonos, even with so many different opinions. And that's what happened. That's the greatness of Klal Yisrael. And you see the fact that in that moment, we were united. In other words, what the event that allowed and that enabled for Kabbalah Satorah was an ability of a people to feel a sense of unity of heart, even though there was such a multiplicity of opinions. And so that's the power of Achdus. Achdus allows us to literally, again, if you want to know, in other words, we always speak about Achdus. What does Achdus allow for? Achdus allows for us to be one people with one united beating heart. So I think, to me, obviously for 2,000 years, we've been trying to reestablish that, or for more than 2,000 years. That's the power of that I think is the power, or the definition of Achdus. In terms of, I guess I'll skip till the end. Why does it take brokenness to create Achdus? The truth is, I don't think that's a din in Achdus. I think it's a din in people. When times are good and when circumstances are easy, we retreat into our corners and we have the luxury of infighting and the luxury of machlokes. But then when we are broken, like we have been since October 7th, so we recognize that so many of the things that cause us to retreat into our respective corners are really unimportant. And we're able to set those things aside, and we're able to go ahead and come together as a people. And I think that's what we've seen. I think, l'tzarenu harav, as the war progresses, you begin to see kind of certain fractures in our national unity, which is a little bit heartbreaking and a little bit disheartening, but that's human nature. So I don't know that Achdus only comes from the brokenness, but that brokenness allows us to see life and to see one another with a clarity that often is just not present in other circumstances.
So when we go back to Har Sinai, to the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai, where there was that complete unity, is that the paradigm that we had to go through, the Jewish people had to go through hundreds of years of slavery in order to get to that moment? Is that the brokenness paradigm that repeats itself in Jewish history?
I don't I think that to me, I look at the brokenness paradigm. Yes, I think that definitely can be part of it. Look, the brokenness paradigm, I think, begins even earlier. There's a beautiful insight by the Lubavitcher Rebbe, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, that the pasuk says that when Yosef revealed his identity to his brothers, so he sends a message back to Yaakov, and it says that he sent from Yaakov mituv Mitzrayim, from the best of Egypt. And there's an interesting machlokes on the Farshim there. What was the best of Egypt? So some say it was clay pishton, beautiful linen garments. Others say it was yayin nashan, shedas zikenim nochem, and aged wine. But then Rashi actually quotes the Gemara that says it was pul grisen, split legumes of some sort. So Lubavitcher Rebbe says, it's such an incongruous opinion, right? Fine garments, I understand. Fine wine. He's trying to show his father that he's the viceroy, that he has all the bounty of Egypt. Why these split legumes? And the Rebbe says something so beautiful. He says, these type of legumes, the way you release or groats, I think is the technical definition, not legumes. The way you release their flavor is by splitting it. It's only if you break the legume that the flavor comes out. And so Yosef, the Rebbe says, was trying to convey to his father, because Yosef knew his father, and he knew that Yaakov Avinu was going to be so happy that his son was alive and successful. I mean, he was viceroy, right? He wasn't a doctor or a lawyer, but he was viceroy. So he knew that his father was going to be bothered by it. But why so much brokenness in our family? Why brother turning against brother? And Yosef, although so young, was so wise. He was trying to tell his father that just like the flavor of these groats or these legumes, it's only released when it's broken. So that's the teva, that the way the world works is sometimes the most beautiful things are discovered when the flavor only comes out. The true flavor only comes out when the item is broken. So I think it starts, and you could probably trace that theme back to the adversity that Avram and Yitzchak and Yaakov and everyone encountered. But on a national level, like on a Shvatim level, Yosef was telling his father, I don't know why all these things had to happen, but the way life works is it's only when you break something open that the true beauty of it comes out. And so, yes, I think, and yes, that leads into slavery, and that leads to Klal Yisrael, the Shvatim, like the Gemara Masechah Sota says, that the Shvatim were menatzim, so they were fighting with each other at the banks of Yam Suf. You go in first, no, I'll go in first. All this machlokes, and finally, again, war with Amalek, and then it leads them to Har Sinai. And then, in that moment, after all of that brokenness, that starts with Yosef, 210 years of slavery, war with Amalek, splitting of the sea, fighting with Moshe and Mara, all of that stuff finally leads to that Achdus.
How do we convey that concept to the younger generation today? We want on the one hand to emphasize simcha, happiness, live your life with happiness. Not that it negates it, but when we talk about brokenness and growing through brokenness, how does the younger generation relate to that? How can they be taught how important that concept is?
It's a great question. And I'm not sure that I have the answer. I'll tell you just an approach that I think about is I think it also comes about, redefining simcha. That really and we know this I think each of us experiences this in our own lives. When do you feel happiest? The truth is, I think for most of us, our happiest moments are not when we're on vacation, as nice as a vacation is. Our happiest moments are when we feel a sense of shleimus, we feel a sense of completion, we feel a sense of accomplishment. And the truth is, I think that now what October 7th and the events, the war since October 7th, has opened up the eyes of our people is they see, and I think to me, this has been one of the most incredible chinuch moments of our entire generation. They have seen people from all parts of Jewish society spring into action. And, you look at the contrast of, and now, I guess I'll focus a little bit more specifically in Eretz Yisrael than let's say in Chutz La'aretz, but you look at the contrast of what was happening within our people prior to October 7th. You look at what happened in Tel Aviv on Yom Kippur, where literally, again, Jew against Jew. And the level of, dare I say, sinas chinam was at a level that I think many of us really never saw. And then you look at how the pendulum swung in the opposite direction. And after October 7th, such a ridiculously overwhelming outpouring of Avas Chinam that I think we don't even have to teach our children. I think our children see it. I think it's literally an Einadome Shmiya Kiriya. I don't think that this is a lesson we have to teach. I think that this is a lesson that every person who has two eyes and an open heart is able to see how literally, again, this outpouring of Achdus. Now the avoda is going to be, how do we hold on to it? Because this war will come to an end. Halavai Meretz Hashem, all of the hostages will come home. Our soldiers will, Meretz Hashem, be successful, B'chol Ma'aseh Yedehem, and the war will come to an end, and life will, quote unquote, go back to normal. How do we keep it? How do we keep it? So, I'll tell you, I was privileged to go with the OU on a rabbinic mission back in, I think it was back in November, and I had the opportunity to speak at an army base. And actually, Shmuel Eliyahu was there. And, I said, to me, one of the scariest parts about the war, about the situation, is the war is going to come to a close and we're going to forget about the Achdus. And Rabbi Eliyahu chimed in and he said, don't worry, there'll be another war. That was his, I said, the truth is, I have a better Eitzah. We've tasted how sweet Achdus is. We've tasted it, like we feel it. And when you feel something so beautiful, so special, why would we ever want to let go of it? So I'm hoping that we've all tasted it and we've all seen it, and hopefully that'll give us the impetus to want to retain it.
How is the concept and the paradigm of what we're calling now brokenness, how does that relate to the very Jewish concept that when things happen, not just to us, but when bad things happen around the world, it's a punishment. It's schar and onish. There's reward. There's punishment. That we're punished, and that's an impetus for tshuva, for repentance. How do we balance that with this idea of brokenness as an opportunity to reach achdut? And why does brokenness have to necessarily lead to achdut as opposed to other things? Greater commitment to the tradition, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so there's a lot to theologically unpack in that question. So first of all, I would personally disagree with that assertion that bad things are punishments. In other words, I think that often we hold on to that theological mindset, but I think it's unsophisticated and I think personally theologically flawed. The Ribono Shel Olam runs a complex world. And the truth is, bad things happen, but the definition of bad, like the pasuk says, mi'ito lo tetzeh hara. Theologically, we believe that everything that happens is for the good from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And even the stuff that hurts, and even the stuff that's painful, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a punishment. There are just different delivery mechanisms for tov. And sometimes good comes packaged with sweetness, and sometimes good comes packaged with heartbreak. But I think you'll find this all the time, certainly in Chassidic literature, I believe, in Parshas Lech Lecha, where he goes ahead and he dissects the bracha of Avos, and the idea that he says, okay, Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, we say in Shmona Esrei, representing different ways in which God relates to us. Avram Avinu being Chesed, and although we have Avram Avinu as Chesed and Yitzchak Avinu representing Gevura, strict justice, and Yaakov Tiferes, the Rebbe points out we always end off Baruch Atah Hashem Magen Avram. So certainly from a Chassidic vantage, from Chassidic thought, everything is good, and even the stuff that hurts, a Yid should never see that as a punishment. I mean, on one hand, on a personal level, the Gemara brings down the concept of Yifashe Shemas, of difficult stuff happens to you in life, you should introspect. But that's using difficult circumstances as a catalyst for introspection. That's on me. How could I live differently? But certainly on a greater level, I don't know why HaKadosh Baruch Hu does things. And therefore my job is not to figure out the why. My job is to figure out the what. What do I do with this? So I think one of the major chinuch pieces we have to do is, on one hand, yifash feish, right? I have to introspect, but on the other hand, never to chas v'shalom assume that we know that bad things are a punishment, or what we perceive as bad, a punishment for things that we've done wrong. That's, I think, on a theological level. In terms of, why do difficult circumstances, why did the catalyst for achdus as opposed to other things? I don't believe it to be mutually exclusive. In other words, that this war should be a catalyst for personal improvement, but I think we'd be burying our head in the sand if we didn't think that the most fundamental problem that Klal Yisrael has struggled with since the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed because of baseless hatred has continued to be sinas chinam. And when one looks, and again, I'm using Eretz Yisrael really as the focal point because I think you see it much more pronounced there than you see it in diaspora communities. The single most burning issue within Klal Yisrael prior to October 7th was sinas chinam. And again, l'tzarenu harav, I think we're beginning to see the crack in that edifice of Achdus beginning, unfortunately, to get in. So again, I don't think that difficult circumstances are only a catalyst for Achdus, but at the same time, the reason we don't yet have the third Beis Hamikdash is because we haven't repaired the problem that caused the destruction of the second one. So when we encounter events that literally turn our people on its head, again, should I grow in my davening, in my Torah, in my tzedakah, my chesed? Absolutely. But bigadol, I think it's a wake-up call that Kadosh Baruch was telling his children, my children, I love you. I love you more than you could ever imagine. I need you to love each other just a little bit more.
The Jewish community in Baltimore is known for being highly organized, basically united. It's really a paradigm for Jewish communities around the world. That is the reputation that Baltimore has, deservingly, obviously. How has your community reacted to the events, and how can communities like the Jewish community in Baltimore, in the diaspora, help unity in Israel?
That's a good question. So I would tell you that your assertions about Baltimore are 100% correct. Look, I am a what's the word? A transport to Baltimore. I'm not originally from Baltimore, but we've been here, Baruch Hashem, the last 20 years in our kehillah, and the shalom that exists in this community, I've never seen before. That is a credit to, I think, to Rabbi Weinberg, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, Rabbi Neuberger, multiple Rabbi Neubergers of Ner Yisrael, who really just set a tone of the most important thing is to keep the community together. And even if that means that, to be honest, certain issues, have to be kind of put to the side, or certain issues don't necessarily get the resolution that they need to get for the sake of shalom, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. How could communities, and I'm sure Baltimore is not the only one. Obviously, it's where I've spent my rabbinic career. So I love this community very much, and I think we have something incredibly special. How could that influence Eretz Yisrael? So look, I'll tell you, one of the things that we are currently working on in our community, in our kehillah, is we're starting a satellite kehillah in Yerushalayim, in the neighborhood of Katamonim. And part of what we are hoping to do is to bring that same brand of kehillah, that same notion of what it means. You see, you come to our shul on a Shabbos, and we're not unique like this. You will find min hakotza el hakotza, guys who learned in Kollel to people who are driving to shul on Shabbos. I'm not encouraging people to drive to shul on Shabbos, but I'm very proud that we have a frum shul with shiurim and with everything else, in which someone who may not be personally observant in that way feels comfortable walking in. And to me, that needs to be a gold standard in our communities. A spectrum, a Beis HaKnesses is supposed to be just that, a gathering place for the klal and all different types of people converging together. So the truth is, what we're trying to do is really recreate that in Meretz Hashem, on the holy soil of Yerushalayim Yer HaKodesh. And hopefully we'll be able to create that model. My hope is that if we are successful, and I know with all of my heart we will be successful, because I believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be successful in this, hopefully it becomes a model that can become replicated. And if North American communities, and I mean, even people, I think sometimes the Aliyah conversation is about Aliyah, and it's important to acknowledge that a lot of people aren't ready for Aliyah for whatever the reason. And it doesn't just have to be either your Aliyah or nothing. Why can't there be a little bit of a hybrid model? And I think if we could create this and kind of replicate what we've done here on the soil of Yerushalayim, on the soil of Eretz Yisrael, then I think that becomes a scalable model. And I think that other Rabbanim and other communities could do the same thing as well. And I think over time, it creates, you have in Eretz Yisrael people who are building communities like this, Baruch Hashem. But I think we North Americans could be like a force multiplier in that. And hopefully over time, it changes the fabric a little bit. Or I shouldn't say change, it enhances the fabric a little bit.
So what exactly is this program? What's involved?
So we are, Baruch Hashem, we have teamed up with an incredible builder, an Avram Berger, who is part of a general gentrification of the neighborhood of Katamonim. And Moshe Leon, the mayor of Yerushalayim, is very much, engaged. We had a wonderful meeting with him a couple of weeks ago. He was actually just speaking about our project at a different conference. And Baruch Hashem, we have 3 buildings that are part of the first shlav of this new community in Katamonim. And Baruch Hashem, we're going community to community. Okay, it's a great piece of real estate, and I'm sure it's a great investment. I don't deal with the gashmius of it, I deal with the ruchnius of it. But what we're really trying to build is a kehillah. So there's going to be a shul, and the builder is building for us a shul. And it's not an add-on, it's part and parcel of the project. So if you're buying into this project, you're buying into something that is going to create a kehillah, and Emeretz Hashem is going to be replicated like in the same youth groups and programming and shiurim and a connection with the Rav. I can't tell you how many people, like I have balabatim who've made aliyah, and I've been very successful in establishing their parnasa and establishing chinuch for their kids, but don't really have a community. And they call me for their shilos, and obviously it's an honor. I love having a kesher with them, but it's heartbreaking. You're in the ancestral Jewish homeland. How do you not have a community that you are a part of? And look, there are other Rabbi Larry Rothwax is working also on building a beautiful kehillah in Amat Beit Shemesh. So I think that this is how we could take this energy and hopefully go ahead and transform Emeretz Hashem, or help to enhance the Aviyah in Eretz Yisrael.
And is this happening from different communities? This is the first I've heard of this. I've not heard of this at all. I mean, we have communities here. I mean, I happen to live in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and there's different communities, and Americans, American communities, non-American communities. This is happening. This is like a model that's beginning to.
Look, I don't know. I could tell you we're doing it.
Okay.
We're doing it. Baruch Hashem, Shlav Aleph of our project in Katamonim, which is 80 units, is almost fully sold out. There has not been any marketing for it, which is probably why you haven't heard of it. So really, we just had like a couple of events here in Baltimore, in Teaneck, in Boca Raton. And Baruch Hashem, there's an excitement for it. It literally is, Alo Rav Lo Lachem V'Lo Tzama Lamayim, Kilim Lios Chelek Mekehillah B'Yerushalayim. It's there's an excitement for it. So again, we have not done any formal marketing, but yes, it is absolutely a davar shabali olam. I was just in Eretz Yisrael the other week, and you can see like the sign is up for the project in Eretz Hashem. There are light rail lines that are going on. There's a whole new development in Katamonim. So it absolutely is happening. Again, like I said, the marketing hasn't been done, but it's there. Now, again, right now, this is something we're doing. My dream is that in Eretz Hashem, once we are successful, to be able to help other Rabbanim do this as well. Because I think that this is an attainable model. And I think I love my kehillah in Baltimore. And the truth is, I'm not leaving them. I'm not leaving them. So I am going to try to figure out how to dance at 2 chasanas in Eretz Hashem, and obviously with the right kind of staffing, simultaneously keep on building my kehillah in Baltimore, and in Eretz Hashem build my satellite kehillah in Eretz Yisrael, in Yerushalayim. And I want very much my kehillah in Baltimore to feel that what we're building in Yerushalayim is an extension. It's not something separate and distinct. It's an extension of what we're doing here. And I think if we could create this model, again, my dream would then be to help other Rabbanim be able to do that as well. Obviously, you need a special kehillah that's supportive of such an endeavor, and you need special balabatim that are supportive of such an endeavor. And it's really not an inexpensive endeavor. But my hope is that in Eretz Hashem, once this project is built, and once we've seen kind of how all the pieces fit together, to have the schus to help other communities do the same would be tremendous.
So this is a project that I assume predates October 7th.
Oh yeah, this has
Okay.
been actually amazing. This has really been going on. I would say it's been going around since probably coming up on a year.
Okay.
And actually, the project was supposed to launch right after Simchas Torah. The brokers of this project are two incredible brothers who live in the Gush, Meir and Hanan Sand, who are in the reserves. So it actually was like the whole thing was incredibly overwhelming. How, I was dealing with them as real estate brokers, and then after October 7th, I said over to my kehillah, like the most incredible thing about October 7th was you see in Eretz Yisrael, everyone has like a Superman identity. Like you remember like Superman, like he did, rip open his shirt and he was Clark Kent and now he's Superman. And in Eretz Yisrael, everybody had a Superman identity. And these two guys, young guys who I knew and who I love, but I knew them in like, okay, they do real estate. Suddenly October 7th, again, they're soldiers and they're commanders and they're officers. And and the truth is the entire project was put on hold probably for a good 2 months, first 2 months of the war, month and a half or so. And now Baruch Hashem, it's begun to pick up steam a little bit more. But yeah, now Baruch Hashem, like it's moving forward with much greater gusto.
Oh, tremendous. Wow. Just imparting any thoughts related to Pesach, to Passover, on the theme that we've been talking about. Obviously, we spoke about it already, brokenness, Mitzrayim, Egypt, and then the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai. Any parting thoughts that we can take as it relates to the upcoming holiday?
So I would say, there's the Maral brings down, he says that there is no greater ben chorin, no greater, display or paradigm of freedom than an ani, than a free person. I'm sorry, than a poor person. And it's interesting to note that you would think just the opposite, like a poor person is, has limited resources, doesn't have the ability to do what he wants. But I think I've often felt that what the Maral is saying is that sometimes, like when a person is impoverished, it's like life is a blank slate. There are no constraints. There's nothing holding you back. So you can make of yourself what you want, which is why I think Geula, we had to, once again, we had to be broken down before we could become a free people, because sometimes adversity of life clears the plate, it clears the field, it clears the slate. So now that I'm broken and what I had before is gone, I have the ability to build something dramatically new. And I think that's the power of Pesach. The power of Yitzias Mitzrayim is that Baruch Hu said, okay, you've been broken for 210 years. Now you're free. The slate is blank. You could do whatever you want. And that's the chayiv adam liros es atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mitzrayim. If we tap into the energy of Pesach, everything is cleared. And that's what it means to be a ben chor. And you come out, I can build of myself what I want. And I hope with all of my heart that that's hopefully what we take from October 7th as well. We were broken. We were broken. I just took a group from our community. We were there in Eretz Yisrael last week, and we were in Kfar Aza, and we were in Zikim, and we were in Kerem Shalom, and especially in Kfar Aza, you look at the destruction, and we were broken. We were broken. But the beauty in the brokenness is kind of like when everything is leveled and you're going to have to raise structures and start again, you could build something new. Pesach tells us that we have the koach to build something new as individuals. October 7th, I think, reminds us that we have the ability to build something new as a people. There's an opportunity to do things different going forward on a personal level, on a national level. And halavai, again, this war coupled with the power of Pesach, Shalom Hashem, give us the koach, the resolve, the hope, and the optimism to hopefully do things different personally and nationally going forward.
Amen, amen. Rabbi Silber, thank you so much for your time today, your words of encouragement, chizuk, inspiration in Torah. Again, thank you so much for being with us today. Appreciate it very much.
An absolute schos, and I take the opportunity to wish you a Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
Thank you very much. Thank you.